There's a moment after a breakup that confuses almost everyone. It usually happens late at night or during a quiet moment in the middle of the day. You suddenly feel it again, the urge to text them, the memory of their voice, the strange sense that something important is missing from your life. And the thought appears almost automatically. I still miss them. But here's the uncomfortable possibility most people don't consider. What if you don't actually miss them? What if what you miss is the feeling you had when you were with them? Because the truth is, those two things are not the same. And understanding the difference can completely change how you move forward. Today, we're going to talk about something that happens to millions of people after relationships end. Why people feel stuck emotionally long after the relationship itself is clearly over. Why the mind keeps replaying memories that feel powerful but incomplete. And why what we often call missing someone is actually something deeper. Not longing for a person, but longing for a state of being. One of the strongest emotions people experience in romantic relationships is the feeling of being chosen. Someone sees you. Someone pays attention to you. Someone wants you in a way that makes you feel different from the rest of the world. In modern Western societies where loneliness is becoming increasingly common, this feeling can be incredibly powerful. Many people live alone, work long hours, move cities for careers, lose the close communities previous generations had. So, when someone enters your life, and suddenly you are no longer alone in the same way, something changes inside your brain. You feel seen. You feel significant. You feel like your life has a witness. That feeling is intoxicating. And when the relationship ends, that feeling disappears too. The brain doesn't always separate the person from the emotion. So instead of thinking, I miss the way I felt about myself in that relationship, we think, I miss them. Another reason people believe they miss someone is because memory is incredibly selective. Your mind does not store relationships like a documentary. It stores them like highlights. Psychologists call this the peak end effect. We remember the emotional peaks of an experience and the ending more than the ordinary middle. So, what do people remember after a relationship ends? The night you stayed up talking until 3 a.m., the trip that felt spontaneous and alive, the moment they looked at you like you were the only person in the room. Those memories are vivid, but relationships are not built out of peaks. They are built out of ordinary days. And ordinary days rarely make it into the highlight reel. The arguments that drained you, the emotional distance, the small disappointments that slowly accumulated over time, those fade faster. So when people say they miss someone, they're often comparing their current loneliness to a memory that has already been edited, a memory that kept the brightest parts and quietly removed the rest. There is another layer people rarely talk about. When you enter a relationship, you don't just gain a partner. You gain a version of yourself. You become someone's person, someone's partner, someone who belongs in a shared story. Your routines change. Your sense of the future changes. Even your identity shifts slightly. You might become more social, more confident, more hopeful about life. So when the relationship ends, you don't just lose the other person. You lose the version of yourself that existed with them, and that loss can be surprisingly painful. Sometimes when people say, "I miss them," what they really mean is, "I miss who I was when I believed that relationship was my future." That grief is not only about love, it's about identity. The human brain is constantly trying to recreate emotional states it once experienced. If something made you feel alive, connected, or valued, your mind will try to return to it. This is true for many experiences: music, places, friendships, and especially romantic relationships. When you were with someone you loved, your brain produced a complex mix of chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. These chemicals created feelings of excitement, safety, and connection. When the relationship ends, the brain doesn't immediately adjust. Instead, it begins searching for the source of those feelings again. And the easiest explanation becomes, "I miss them." But the brain may actually be missing the chemical state that relationship created: the excitement, the anticipation, the emotional intensity. And intensity can be addictive. Another reason people think they miss someone is familiarity. Human beings are extremely sensitive to emotional patterns. If a relationship followed a particular rhythm, closeness, distance, reconciliation, the nervous system becomes used to that rhythm, even if the pattern was unhealthy. When that pattern disappears, the brain doesn't experience relief right away. It experiences withdrawal, not necessarily from the person, but from the emotional pattern. This is why people sometimes return to relationships they know are not good for them. Not because they believe the relationship will suddenly become healthy, but because the emotional landscape is familiar. And familiarity can feel safer than uncertainty. Modern loneliness plays a major role in this dynamic. Across the United States and Europe, researchers are documenting what some call a loneliness epidemic. People have fewer close friendships, less time with family, more digital interaction but less real connection. In that environment, romantic relationships often carry an enormous emotional weight. They become the primary source of intimacy, companionship, and validation. So when that relationship ends, it doesn't just remove a partner, it removes an entire emotional ecosystem. Loneliness then amplifies memories of the relationship. The good moments feel brighter, the painful ones feel less important, and the mind begins telling a story that the relationship itself was more meaningful than it actually was. Again, the brain interprets this as, "I miss them." But often the truth is, "I miss not feeling alone." Nostalgia is one of the most powerful psychological forces humans experience. It softens memories. It reshapes experiences. It turns complicated relationships into simple emotional narratives. Over time, nostalgia often removes tension from memories. You stop remembering how often you felt anxious. You stop remembering the emotional distance. You stop remembering the subtle ways the relationship didn't really work. What remains are moments, and moments are easy to romanticize. But nostalgia is not an accurate historian. It is a storyteller, and its stories are often kinder than reality. Understanding that you may be missing a feeling rather than a person is not meant to invalidate your emotions. The feelings are real. The memories are real. The connection you had was real. But recognizing what you actually miss gives you something important: clarity. Because if what you miss is a feeling, that feeling is not permanently tied to one person. You can experience connection again. You can experience excitement again. You can experience belonging again. But if you believe those feelings only existed because of one specific person, you risk staying emotionally trapped in the past. Letting go does not mean pretending the relationship never mattered. It means understanding what parts of it actually shaped you. Some people changed your life. Some people taught you things. Some people helped you see parts of yourself you didn't know existed. But relationships can be meaningful without being permanent. And memories can remain valuable without controlling your future. The goal is not to erase the past. It is to understand it clearly enough that it no longer defines what you believe is possible for your life. So the next time you feel that familiar thought, "I miss them," pause for a moment and ask yourself a slightly different question. Do I miss who they were? Or do I miss how I felt when I believed in that relationship? Because sometimes what we are grieving is not a person. It's a version of life we once imagined. And the truth is, that feeling connection, meaning, belonging was never owned by one person. It came from the way you experienced love, which means it is something you can experience again with someone else. And maybe next time with someone who doesn't just create the feeling for a moment, but someone who helps you build a life where that feeling can stay.